Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Anthony, it feels like we were just here a couple of days ago doing a podcast, and we got to be here again early next week because I leave town for about 8 days. So we have to, we'll be here. We need the Wild to do something.
Well, they'll start camp in a few weeks.
Yeah, that is true.
Up until then, I don't think they're going to do much.
No, I would concur. Our next live show is September 19th at 7 p.m. at Tuttles. So definitely come on out for that. September 19th at 7 p.m. at Tuttles. Thanks for everybody for joining us from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Anthony, I was at the State Fair this week, and somebody came up to me and told me how much they love the podcast. And they said their favorite part was when I take you to task, when I rip you.
Well, I get that about 100 times a day. People coming up to me saying, I love when you call Russo out on all his BS.
Oh, baloney.
I honest to God.
I don't buy the BS
That's
part.
Exactly what I get all the time.
Well, those people listening are idiots.
Well, this is good. It's unbelievable how often I get that comment that I love it when you call Russo out on his negativity and his BS.
Oh, so I don't buy that.
I don't buy the negativity
part.
That's exactly what I hear.
I'm Mr. Positive.
Yeah, beacon of positivity.
Yep.
Glass is half full. That's what we always said about you.
This is going to be a long 60 minutes for me, by the way, because I started this. Maybe we should just start over. My little Zoom recorder has already gone to one battery life icon. We'll just see if it works. It'll be like the movie Speed or something. All right.
We're coming here to you from a dog pound here because right now the LaPanta household is flush with 3 dogs. Marvin's living with us now, so he's a New York dog that's moved in. He's going to be with us for a while. So Stanley and Phil now have company. So if you hear any roaring in the background, that's what's going on.
The other thing I did at the State Fair is I was walking around. So I was there for 8 hours.
Fascinating comment. But as I was at the State Fair.
So the eight hours the other day, I like the pound. Marvin's just making all sorts of noise, though.
Marvin's a happy guy.
I think about 3 weeks ago, said on the podcast that Marvin was the most well-behaved of your 3 dogs that were here.
Well, 2 of them are just sitting across the family room staring at Marvin because they have to know where he is at all times.
Yeah. So I was at 8 hours the other day. I had it was PA Common or Brandon Molesky was filling in and Barrero. And in between shows, I walked around and Dylan Laux, you know him, Hockey News Dylan Laux and his friends. And I made these guys walk around the fair probably 20,000 steps in search of just a vegetable for me. I could not find any veggies anywhere other than like pickle on a stick. Don't you think there should be like I don't know, some celery or something there should be like a healthy area of the fair.
There's a reason why I don't eat a lot at the fair, and that's part of it. You can get corn on the cob; that counts as a vegetable.
That's not really a vegetable.
Corn's a vegetable.
It's a lot of starch, and you're eating it.
Vegetable.
You're eating it like a chicken drumstick. It just seems to me to not be the healthiest.
Well, I don't think it's not the best vegetable for you, but at least it is a vegetable and it's not deep fried.
That's true.
So that's a start. Otherwise, I mean, it's been a couple of years since I've eaten anything at the fair other than I do have a friend who runs the mini kebab stand. The mini kebabs are healthy. They're just vegetables and meat on a stick.
I wish
They're
I
not
found
deep fried or anything. Well, there's a couple of them there. I know there's one in the food building, but I usually will stop there, get a mini kebab. And other than that, I usually am in and out. I haven't been around there for food for a few years.
Yeah. You want to come Labor Day?
I've got to work the Twins on Labor Day.
Oh, what time?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. By the way,
I'd like to say I would be a total guess.
Yeah. The funniest text I almost sent a screen capture to Margot was yesterday when we were supposed to do a pod last night. And you wrote me back and you're like, apparently the Twins have a night game.
Right. So this has been a running joke. I had some fun poked at me all day Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Tuesday, I was doing the game at night, and in about the 4th inning, I had flipped ahead on my app to see who was pitching the next day, and all of a sudden saw the game time. And I turned to Tim Laudner. I said, "Wait, it's a night game tomorrow?" And so for the rest of the game, they were giving me grief about it. We had some fun with it in the post-game show. So Wednesday night, we're sitting at the stadium and everybody, I'm glad you're here on time. If you had just thought it was a day game, you'd have just been here early. And And Roy was doing the game. He didn't know about the conversation the night before. And he said, "Are you guys making fun of me for not knowing it was a night game?" And I said, "No, they're making fun of me." And he said, "I didn't know it was a night game either until Friday." And everybody just assumed that third game, getaway day, was a day game. And so that's exactly right. I texted you probably in the fourth inning of the game saying, "Hey, turns out the game's at night tomorrow, so we're going to have to push the pod back a day."
And so we're doing it on the getaway day, the Thursday.
So,
good news is that the Twins can't lose today.
They can't lose today.
Yeah, man, they are in the cellar. I mean, they are just like
it's
plummeting.
a tough stretch. They've lost 8 out of 10 and 5 out of 6 to start this homestand. The Braves are playing well right now. That there's some good teams that are going to lose to Atlanta, but dropping 2 of 3 to St. Louis to start the homestand was tough. And right now they're scuffling. Their lineup is still a little bit beat up, but their pitching hasn't been as good lately. They're relying on a lot of rookies. 3 of their 5 starting pitchers right now are rookies. And in a pennant race, a bunch of rookies is usually not the recipe for success. Although David Festa threw a great game the other night against Chris Sale, matched him just about inning for inning the whole way, and wound up losing the game when he walked the leadoff guy in the 7th. I don't know. They're still in a good spot. I think as we tape this, I think they're 3 ahead of Boston for the last wild card spot. They do still have a series head-to-head with the Red Sox. But the way the Royals are playing right now, the Guardians, I think, are probably good to make the playoffs one way or the other, whether they win the division or get in as a wild card. The Twins are still sitting in a good spot with whatever it is, 29 games left, but they got to figure it out because right now there's just something off. They've been making mistakes on the base paths. They haven't been as sharp defensively. The pitching hasn't been as good. Strikeouts are ramping up again after they had gone through a long stretch this season where the strikeouts were down. I still believe they'll probably find a way into the playoffs, but unless they really get back to playing like they were even 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were kind of on top of their game. We're playing good baseball against even some good teams. And they just need their guys back. They need Buxton and Correa back in their lineup. I don't know what Brooks Lee's situation is. He's still hurt too, and sounds like he might. I don't know if he will come back this year or not, but they're fighting it.
Yeah, and Royce Lewis, they need him to get going again.
Yeah, I mean, he's been fine. He's still. We had a stat the other night. He's driving in runs, I think, 3rd in the league in RBI frequency. He's right up there with all the league leaders in OPS relative to the number of plate appearances that he has because he doesn't have enough to qualify. But he's been everything that you could ask of a young superstar. And boy, what a great guy. I was a part of their fundraiser, their Grand Slam dinner, which it was really cool to have this back. It had been since pre-COVID since they had done it. They do a dinner to raise money for the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Twin Cities and the Twins Community Fund. And it's at Capitol Grill, and Royce Lewis and his fiance were the hosts and just did a terrific job. He's such a personable, humble, and genuine guy. So he stood up in front of the room, had a great crowd that night. I think there were about 7 or 8 players that were celebrity waiters, and Audra Martin and I were there representing Valley Sports North, and we had a blast. It was a great night. But Royce got up, and he and his fiance talked to the crowd and said, "Hey, look, we're looking for ways to give back to the community. If anybody's got other ideas, please get a hold of us. We'd love to be more active in this city, which is our new home." And really just a tremendous guy. He did a great job. And it was a great night. Capitol Grill does an awesome job putting it together. A lot of fun for a great cause. But I was just kind of taken back at just how good of a person he really is.
Right. And I told you how he treated my nephews a couple of weeks ago when they were here.
Yeah, it's not just when the cameras are on. I mean, he's really just that. He's that genuine of a guy, and really all the guys that were there. Bailey Ober was there that night. Pablo Lopez, Griffin Jacks. It was and some others, but those guys. I know Trevor Larnach was there. They just do such a great job, and they're interacting with the fans. It's just fun to watch.
So speaking of my nephews, my family was here. So my mother sent me. My mother sends me this letter that she got yesterday from Delta Airlines. Mm-hmm. So my mom opens it up, probably thinks it's like extra Scott Mouse or something. It says, "All right, dear Ms. Russo." And by the way, my mom's last name is not Russo, but now I wish it on her Delta thing that she changes her name because I'm scared that I'm going to get like pulled into this like thing and I'm like suddenly not going to get upgraded. All right. Dear Ms. Russo, your travel with your animal while flying with us on flight 1028 from Minneapolis to Atlanta on August 8th has been brought to our attention. Oh, man. You're receiving this letter as a friendly reminder of important policies with traveling with an animal. Long story short with this letter, and it is friendly, but it's like almost like lecturing and condescending. Mm-hmm. Apparently, little Pepper was out on her lap the entire flight, which is obviously not allowed. So as my mom sends me this letter, she tells me like what's that she almost like she felt like set up. Okay. That the flight attendant saw her, oh, so cute. And then like, take her out. Let's give her treats and water. Right. Blah, 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 blah. This is where she leaves it on the text message. So I bring this up to my brother who was on the same plane. And she goes, yeah, what she forgot to tell you is on the flight home. That was not the reaction of the flight attendants and how weird it was that the different flight attendants had different reactions that Pepper was not supposed to be on her lap, which I don't know. I mean, you and I have flown, you don't fly commercial as much as me. I fly commercial all the time. Dogs are not allowed to just hang out unless they are a true guide dog, like a guide dog for somebody that's blind or truly disabled.
Dog.
Yeah.
And we had dogs that were on our flight coming home from Portugal. There was either one of the flights in the middle or toward the end. And they were underneath the seat I think it was the flight all the way home from Paris, if I remember right. So they were underneath the seat for like 7 or 8 hours. Yeah. And as the plane started to descend, they started to howl because they've flown enough where they could sense the plane descending and therefore we're almost home. So you started to hear them. And that was the first I heard of them. I was like, wait, there's dogs back there? But you can't have dogs out of their kennels. I mean, that you just can't.
Well, I mean, just even like, I know like certain dogs are hyperallergenic, but there are people like legit, like it's almost like a peanut allergy with dogs. And
there's a million reasons why. Yeah. I mean, we haven't flown with our dogs, but just because you like your dog doesn't mean your dog likes everybody else or everybody else likes dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, she got in trouble. So luckily, they seem to, they did make it very clear in the thing that she just needs to remember this next time she flies with her quote animal. So some flight attendant turned her in and got her in a lot of trouble. So
now, does this dog walk in a stroller like the last dog did?
No. Did that last dog
wasn't it your last dog that got attacked by a Yorkie or something like that?
The Yorkie was in like a stroller.
The Yorkie was in the stroller and attacked her mom's dog.
It was a ferocious Yorkie. And I mean, literally, like it was like a bloodbath. It was like,
I can picture a Yorkie with a baby bonnet on and a stroller attack and just being vicious at the same time in disguise.
Unfortunately, Oliver is no longer with us. So this whole conversation, as much as it's already going to tick off my mom, is really going to make things sour. But anyway, I just thought that was funny.
Well, now you can just blame any future status downgrades on the fact that it was probably because your mom had Pepper out of the cage.
I was just down at my club that I belong to, booking like the first quarter of the season's flights, like through mid-December. And some of these flights, as you know, to California, you kind of need to be upgraded. So if all of a sudden I'm not, I know who to blame. So I'll be honest.
Are you flying to Winnipeg?
I am on that flight. Yeah,
which will be your first trip to Winnipeg in decades.
Well, yeah. Other than I did go last year and drove, and that turned out to be the game that Faber secretly broke his ribs and nobody knew.
Yeah, because I think it was the previous couple of trips up there. One Kaprizov got squashed. Yeah. And
Gustafson got hurt. Lettieri got hurt. There's been every time the Wild are there that somebody gets hurt.
Had been injured,
2 years in a row for Kaprizov.
That's right. That's what it was. It was the 2 injuries to him that I knew you'd missed both of those. And so when you showed up this last year, we knew something was going to happen.
Exactly. So sorry to my mom for telling that story, but I will admit that so little is going on for the Wild that the second I read this letter, I'm like, well, here's 5 minutes to talk about on the podcast. So even though I didn't warn her that I was going to be talking about this, I knew right when she sent me this, I was going to. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Russo for Aquarius Home Services. The State Fair Mega Sale is back, and Aquarius is offering an amazing 2-for-1 AC and furnace tune-up special. With the unpredictable weather, your AC has been working overtime, and colder temperatures are on the way. For one low price, Aquarius will thoroughly evaluate your entire heating and cooling system, ensuring you're prepared for every season. Don't wait. Schedule your appointment today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. And remember, tell them that Russo sent you.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Make the switch to a Royal checking account, and you'll also get real-time transaction alerts, free mobile check deposits, and surcharge-free access to over 40,000 ATMs across the U.S. Enjoy financial freedom with no minimum balance and no monthly fees when you switch to Royal's smart checking account. Learn more and open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
Have landed in a new spot so quickly, and I just was texting with him this week a little bit just before he left to head down there. And
I just realized today's his birthday.
I didn't know that, but I know he just left, I think yesterday, to head to Nashville for the season. But it'll be fun. It'll be weird. Every time you see guys in different spots for the first time, it's strange. And a lot of times we're talking about players, but there have been some times with coaches here recently where it's been really strange too. I'll never forget the first time we saw Mike Yeo with the St. Louis Blues stuff on when we went down there to
Tampa
for a Wild. No, when he wasn't with the Wild anymore.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're at the rink and he's walking around in St. Louis Blues warm-up jackets and stuff.
Actually, in Tampa, he was with the Flyers at that point.
He was.
Right.
That's right.
That's when we were doing the pod on the
we had
on the river, and I drank a little too much Bloody Mary.
We were worried that somebody was stalking you or something like that. You thought a mugger was hanging out nearby, and it turned out to just be a fan of the show.
Yeah. That's not the first time that's happened to me. Even at Target, like somebody would be looking at me. I'm like, what are you looking at? And he's like, and then they'll come up to me and be like, are you Mike Russo? But I give him like the, what you want to fight look. Like you're just looking at me and you just kind of forget that people actually know who I am. So the one thing I did talk to Trotz about was Yakov Trenin, and he was really complimentary of what type of player he is and how tough he is to play against and all that stuff. He did say he's streaky. He's like it wouldn't shock me if he scored 20 goals next year. It wouldn't shock me if he scored 10. He's like, but he's got the skill level to be more than just, a penalty kill, hard hitting shot blocker.
I think that really feels like could be the theme of Minnesota's third line is guys that are capable of playing that defensive minded, penalty killing, shutdown type role, but also bring some skill, depending on who ends up being on that third line. But we're assuming it'll be Trenin, we're assuming it'll be Foligno, and then somebody else, whether it be Marco Rossi or Ryan Hartman or somebody like that you're talking about a third line that's got some guys who can score.
Yeah. Somebody did ask on Twitter today to us is, we keep on talking about a Hartman, Zuccarello, Kaprizov reunion and why we're just not assuming that maybe Marco Rossi plays there instead of Eriksson and having a prototypical third line of Hartman, Trenin, and Foligno. I actually think that line could work really well. But I think don't you get the impression though they're going to give Ryan that chance to elevate in the lineup before at least at the start?
Well, I think they'll give him every opportunity to because of the fact that it was so successful 2 years ago. But he has to prove it. And I think the benefit that this year's team has that last year's didn't is it's got some guys that are capable of moving in the lineup. If it doesn't work with Hartman, you've got Marco Rossi, who showed last year he's capable of being a top six guy. And you've got guys like Eriksson and Boldy. Johansson has shown he can be a top six guy. But so you've got maybe 7 or 8 options to be top six type players. If one guy's in a slump or one guy's beat up or one guy's just not producing right now, well, you throw somebody else up there for a while.
Right.
And you've got some guys capable of playing third line roles like a Hartman, Foligno, Trenin, maybe Husnudinov, maybe Ogren, who also have some offensive skill. So it isn't like it's just, here's a third line that we're going to go out there and hope that they tread water for 45 seconds. They're guys who can actually make something happen. So I think it's going to give John Hines a little more flexibility and a little more ability to react to guys that are either going that night or going that week or month or whatever the stretch of games might be. I think they'll give Hartman the first crack. It might not be the right word for it, but at some point they're going to give him the opportunity to prove that he can handle that. He can handle those minutes, and that because how much success that line had 2 years ago is really hard to ignore.
Right.
You're talking about a guy who scored 33 even strength goals that year in Ryan Hartman. And I don't know why you wouldn't at least at some point. And maybe it'll be 10 games into the season when all of a sudden you haven't scored for a couple of games, and well, let's try this and see if we can rediscover some of the magic those guys have.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, we've seen even Rossi and Boldy play well together. So if the Hartman thing doesn't work, you'd always throw Eriksson Ek back with Kaprizov and Zuccarello.
Well, maybe Rossi plays with Eriksson Ek and Boldy on a second line.
Right.
I mean, that's not out of the question either. And now you've got Marcus Johansson playing somewhere in your bottom six, where it's another guy who brings some skill to a lower line in the lineup. I just think there's some flexibility this year that there wasn't a year ago.
Yeah.
And with all that, we didn't even mention Ogren, who I still think has a chance to fit in there somewhere in the top nine. Maybe not right away opening night, but I figure he's certainly appeared that he's capable of playing.
Does it concern you that I mean, this season, really is shaped out as a lot of hope from the organization that these guys are just going to bounce back and that they're going to be healthy. Obviously, goaltending is a big thing, but it just seems like they are expecting just because they don't have the ability to go out and make external moves and have a lot of cap space, that they're just putting all their eggs into the decrease in production that we've seen from a lot of these guys for now 2 years in a row is just going to magically become what we saw 3 years in a row when they were one of the top scoring teams in the league.
Yeah, but I think it's a little different than that, because there's so many guys that had down years last year, and health was a big part of it. I don't think it's that unreasonable to say a couple of them bounce back. You don't need all of them to bounce back, but Foligno will be better than he was last year, if for no other reason than he's healthy.
Right. And he actually, I mean, as you and I have discussed a lot of times, it's a fallacy that he had a bad year.
Right.
He obviously, his game started to churn when he couldn't move, but especially defensively, his numbers last year were tremendous.
They were great. And I'm just saying that, it was the year before that he had his breakout offensive season, and probably land somewhere in between there. Ryan Hartman, in a down year, still scored 20. I think it's reasonable to think he's going to exceed that. Maybe he scores 25. Maybe he doesn't get back to 34, but he gets back to 25. Freddie Gaudreau will absolutely be better than he was last year. Marcus Johansson probably will be better. So, I mean, you're talking about 4 or 5 guys, and then defensively you got Spurgeon, who wasn't healthy. So if you take, let's just say with those 5 guys, if 2 of them bounce back, you don't need all 5 of them to go back to where they were 2-3 years ago, but you need 2 of them to probably get somewhere in between where they were last year and where they were previously, because then you're looking at young guys that, Faber, you figure, is going to continue to ramp up in the right direction, and then guys like Ogren, maybe Height, maybe Husnudinov, that those guys they're on their way up in their careers, that it stands to reason that you'll get more from those guys than you got last year.
Yeah. With Hartman, don't you get the impression that it's not even offensively that when they keep on talking about a down year, it's his own end, right? I mean,
I think
there are times in his own end that they were not happy with him. I
think that, and just consistent effort makes it sound worse than it is. It wasn't really effort. It was just the ability, the stamina, the fitness level. And I'm not saying anything that they haven't said to him, that if you're going to play with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, Hines said it in his post-game or postseason press conference that if you want to play with those guys, you got to be able to show us you can play 18, 20 minutes every night. And if you can't, then you can't be on that line, because we can't have a guy that is only capable of playing 14 or 16 minutes a night playing with 2 wingers that we want to play 20.
Right.
And so I think it's more of that. So when I say effort, it isn't necessarily effort like playing hard. It's just the ability to play hard for a long period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree with you. I mean, John Hines has basically spelled that out. He he said back in July that you need to have somebody that's willing to that is able to play with Kaprizov, and that was clearly, the context of that was Hartman.
Right.
There's no doubt about it.
And I think they believe that he can be that player because what he brought to that line, remember, was he brought some grit. He brought some intensity. He brought fire. He brought a little bit of a grinder mentality to a highly skilled line.
Yeah.
And when they were going great, Hartman was doing a lot of the dirty work for those two guys.
And he does have skill too. So, I mean, there's a reason why he was a first round pick. But, I think that he'll be in much better position to have a good year this year because, as long as he is fully healthy, which I think he is. Remember last August, he actually injured his back training and it just kept him from being in the gym for basically a full month. And it probably affected him. Although if you remember offensively, he was one of the rare guys going for the first month and a half last season. I think he had 7 or 8 of his 21 goals in the first month and a half, if I remember correctly. John Walton, I wanted to talk to you about somebody that you and I both respect, not born in Minnesota, but grew up in Minnesota. Washington Caps radio guy announced yesterday that during a routine colonoscopy that he had in July, that he had was diagnosed with colon cancer, underwent an operation yesterday to have part of his colon removed. I texted with him today, had a funny line because he's
a diehard Twins fan.
Yeah,
every time we see him, he stops me in the booth and we have a long conversation about the Twins. Whether it be if we see him in the fall, it's what just happened. If we see him in the winter, it's how they looking in the spring.
Yeah, and he said the surgery was successful. He's resting, and he said, but if the Twins can get it together, it would help me immensely. But it is
tremendous guy
and great broadcaster.
I always love listening to his calls.
Like his final seconds call of the Washington Capitals winning it all in Vegas in 2018. 2018, if I remember correctly. Yes. Was to me, I mean, it's just tremendous. And I think you could see it on YouTube, but, best of luck to John Walton, and I can't wait to see him. He says he's going to be in training camp. In fact, one reason why I chatted with Bruce Boudreau today, because Bruce is really, really tight with John Walton, and Boudreau is going to be my guest on the Russo Radio KFAN 12 to 3 show on Monday. So if you're at the State Fair, come on out. We'll be right back.
We do want to thank Twill and the Edina Galleria. I don't know if you've been to the Edina Galleria. It's a beautiful place to shop, a very comfortable place to shop, easy parking, easy in and out, really good restaurants there to hang out in if you want to do that. But if you walk by Twill, you'll see that the shop reflects their products. It's a very down-to-earth, easygoing, attractive space with expert associates working there who are not pushy at all. They're just there to answer your questions and help steer you in the right direction if you need steering. And you go in there and just walk by, get a look, and then go back when you want to buy clothes for yourself, when you buy somebody a present, whatever the case might be. Go in and realize that Scott Dayton handpicks everything in his shop. Scott Dayton's the proprietor. It is Twill by Scott Dayton. Scott's been a friend of mine and has been supporting this network for a long time. I buy all of my clothes there. My wife loves the place. Every time we go in there, we buy more than we expected to buy because my wife likes it so much. Their stuff fits. It wears well. I just went on a European vacation where everything I wore was from Twill because you get out of an 8-hour flight and you're not even wrinkled. The stuff just wears well. You can buy everything from golf, from running shoes, walking shoes, golf shorts to beautiful Italian suits that you can wear anywhere, to any occasion. So just check out twillmn.com, sign up for their email notifications. They will not spam you. They'll just send you something if they're going to have a special event.
Hey everyone, Attorney Jerry Bosch here with Bosch Law Firm and WorkCompExperts.com. For almost 30 years, we've represented Minnesotans just like you all over the great state of Minnesota to guarantee they've been treated fairly and with respect when they've suffered a work-related injury. A work injury can change your life in an instant. You need someone on your side who can help you focus on getting back on your feet and getting paid while you do. You may be entitled to medical benefits, wage loss benefits, job placement, retraining, and payment for permanent disability. To make sure you are being paid all the work comp benefits you're entitled to, please call the attorneys at Bosch Law Firm. The call is always free, and there's never a fee unless we recover benefits on your behalf. Call 651-333-8300, Bosch Law Firm, or visit us at workcompexperts.com.
If you're grilling steaks or cooking steaks anyway, the best place to get them is at Feller's Ranch. You can go to fellersranch.com. It's Minnesota's premier Wagyu ranch. Their Wagyu is unbelievable. The marbling is second to none. The ribeyes are terrific. We've had the New York strips recently. You can find them at a few local restaurants, but you can also have them delivered to your home. Their vans are in the cities a couple times a week. They're available at a couple of butcher shops. Just check it out at fellersranch.com and you won't be disappointed.
Back here, worst seats in the house, Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Anthony?
Well, I'm TBA for the Monday show because I haven't yet figured out what time the Twins are playing.
Yeah, that's true.
I know I'm working the Twins game. They have a 4-game series, and in fact, you know what? It's a night game. It's a night game, so it's possible I could swing back.
Oh, there you go. We'll see. So we got Boudreaux's coming on at 12:30. I got Veyu coming on at 1:30. So anytime in the last hour or
we'll talk
in between.
We'll talk. It's possible.
No, we're going to just make you commit now. And you better be on time.
Well, I have to be on time because I got to get to a Twin show. I believe the Twins they're on the East Coast somewhere, and I know that Thursday is a day game because Lods is working the Thursday game, but not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
There you go.
So we discussed this last night. It's a night game on Monday. So,
by the way, Bally Sports North, really tough loss last week. To me, one of the best producers in all of television.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that it was great news that they finally figured it out and they're going to have.
Well, not yet.
Well, it's
Tuesday's court hearing will be the determine everything.
It's supposedly
You're back.
Basically locked in that we'll have this season. Beyond that is still no.
And this year they only took 15 of your games nationally.
Yeah,
so
well, they have to. 2 of them they have to give us back side by side.
Oh, okay.
So that they can only take 13 exclusively, which is the max.
Then I totally misread the press release and put out misinformation.
They did take 15 games. Okay. But there's 2 that will be blacked out locally, and Bally's will be the only home to see them, only way to see them.
Okay.
And it's because they do that every year. They used to with the Blackhawks. They'd take 20 every year, but then give 7 of them back to the local shows in Chicago. Yeah. Everywhere else in the country could still watch them, but in Chicago, you could only watch them on their local show. So for us, I don't remember which the 2 are. I think they're both home games that they're giving back to us.
One's a Florida game in December, and another one is maybe Carolina. I can't remember.
I think it might be Seattle, but I'm not positive about that. I know that they took the max.
I kind of misconstrued it. It's not as bad as I thought, but I definitely thought that the 2 games were going to be locally blacked out, not locally. No. Locally blacked out for you.
No, the national show will be blacked out. The local show will be all the people can see here for those 2 games.
Yeah. But the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is I found out that I run into young Matt over at the State Fair, and he tells me that John Stroh is leaving for another opportunity.
Our producer, John Stroh, is leaving. He's been
28 years
with the company. Yeah. And I forget exactly how many was the Wild game producer. I think maybe 18, but I might be shortchanging that.
The last 11 had to be the hardest.
Actually, I think I asked him about that. I said, now you're going to have to go and oversee some broadcasts where the play-by-play guy doesn't help produce for you. And he just laughed. But he's one of the best.
You finally drove him out.
I did. He's not the last. He's not the first. Probably won't be the last. Now, John he's a tremendous guy, and he and I have worked together for a long time on a full-time basis for the last 20 years, part-time for a few years before that where we crossed paths. But he and I crossed paths on Gopher hockey. We crossed paths on some high school shows. He's been a huge part of Hockey Day Minnesota and the development of that. He's really plays a huge part in the working with the local organizing committees every year, and then obviously you got a lot of people with the Wild, with the Bally's in place, and then the LOCs, the teams. He's been a huge part of the development of that. He'll be missed there. He'll be missed on our broadcasts, and I've always said this. I'd put our local shows up against anybody's in the league on a night in, night out basis. And I watch a ton of the other local broadcasts, and it's a high quality production. And he was a big reason for that. He was, young Matt's a part of it too. He's our director. Matt Gangle directs quite a few of the games as well. And he's one of the best in the business, but John was the constant, and he was a part of, if we did 75 games every year, he probably did 72 or 73 of them. And he'll be missed for sure, and a good friend too. So he'll be missed. We'll still see him. He's still involved in the TV business. He's taking a job with a new venture. I think the name of it's Victory Plus, and they've got the rights to the Dallas Stars and now the Anaheim Ducks. So, and it's a promotion for him. So it's a great opportunity. I'm excited for him. I'm happy for him, and we'll still see him. He isn't leaving Tom Ted on his own in the Donkey Hockey League, so he'll still be around for that, and we'll see.
So that means I still got to be wary of any trade offers.
You still have to be careful, but it'll be good to see him. We'll still see him quite often. He's still going to live here in town, but he's a big loss for our company, no doubt.
Yeah, and if he somehow listens to this, he's going to be shocked that I called him a producer, because I think I once introduced him to my mom as director, and he's like, a producer.
Right. I've heard you introduce him as director a couple other times.
Sometimes, director just sounds like you are the director.
Well, they're side by side. It's not necessarily that one is
like you're directing everything.
The other. Well, yeah, the director directs the show. He calls the cameras. He directs what you actually see on the screen. The producer oversees the whole content of the show.
Yeah.
So he's in charge of a lot more different elements of it than the director is.
Still the funniest thing with John Stroh and me when he was in my ear, and he, you would think that the producer wouldn't want to screw up the kind of the inexperienced person on TV, but he had fun in my ear a lot. But the one in Phoenix, remember when we find out before the game that Jared Spurgeon wasn't in warm-ups, and it turned out to be norovirus, but the mumps were going around the team. Mm-hmm. So before I'm on, we find out right when I'm coming on that Spurgeon isn't playing. So he's like, hey, just announce the news that Spurgeon isn't playing, and say, it could be the mumps. So I'm announcing that Spurgeon's not playing on there, and then he just goes in my ear to remind me, mumps. And then I just blurt out mumps, and then was like, just deer in headlights look. And then I'm like, could be the mumps. And then at the end, as he's counting down, instead of doing all right, 10 seconds, he's just in my ear as we're going to commercial, and I'm supposed to throw back to you. He's just like mumps, 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 mumps in my ear as I'm talking.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun.
But he's a professional.
He is a professional.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of fun over the years, and there have been a couple times he made me laugh one time on the air live when it was actually a Twins game. I was filling a Twins rain delay, and he made a comment that I couldn't contain myself, and I started laughing. And as I'm laughing, trying to throw it to break, he gets in my ear again. He said, "Of all the things I've said to you over the years, this is the one that you could not contain yourself."
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of the little things that happen behind the scenes.
Fans don't
get to see. And we've shared a lot of dinners, a lot of beers over the years, and a lot of good times. John will be missed, and we've got some good people that I'm sure are at least the leading candidates to slide into that spot, but he will be missed, no doubt.
By the way, Lou Nanny called me yesterday, and was that yesterday or today? Either way, he goes to me, did you buy that cabin yet? And I just told him, LaPanta says that I'm not a cabin person, and he doesn't think I could drive the pontoon.
Well, Louis looks at it for one reason only. He looks at it as it's worth more than what they're selling it for, so therefore you should buy it.
Right.
Louis doesn't understand that not everybody functions that way, where here's something that you absolutely don't need, but it's worth more than the sale price, so buy it, then hang on to it for a little while and sell it, and you'll make some money. And Louis called me, I think 4 times in the last 2 days, and I had missed.
Yeah, by the way, he did say that to me. He goes, LaPanta hasn't called me back in a week.
The last 2 I answered, and I was convinced he was just butt dialing me, because the first 2 I had missed. Excuse me. And I thought, Louis is trying to call me, but I was in the middle of something else. Then the last 2 times I've answered the phone, and hello, and I never get anything. So I just assumed they were accidental calls. Yeah. So I'll call him back. All right. I'm glad to know he was really trying to get a hold of me.
Yep. All right, let's go to Twitter questions. First one is from somebody that you know dearly. I won't say his Twitter account because I think it's probably supposed to be private. But he goes, have either of you ever puked outside a cigar bar, took a taxi to a hotel to curl up and pass out, and denied it the next morning to his sons?
No.
One of us has.
I haven't. You don't have any sons, so I'm going to say no is the answer to that question.
Yeah, it happened.
It did not happen.
It did happen.
It's an absolute fictional story.
It happened.
No, it's a fictional story. And what actually happened is we did have cigars, and I did take a cab home,
and you did pass out.
Well, no,
but you claim you said let's put it this way: the only thing that you claim that is not right in this story is the puke part.
Well, I know for a fact that's an absolute fiction, but the other part was we were planning to go bike riding, and I went home to get cold weather gear, and when I got back, I had taken a cab, and I was like, "I'm going to pay you. Just wait for like 5 minutes. I got to run upstairs," and I ran upstairs. And I was like, I'm done. So it was a conscious choice to not go back.
And again, your two sons not with you, expecting that they were going to go meet you to bike around, but then you. I
was just coming. I said I'm going to be back, and I just didn't come back. But they were. They were. Greenhorn was there. Were you still there at that? I don't think you were there anymore. I think it was just it was Greenhorn and the two boys and me.
Yeah.
And I don't think they went bike riding either, but they were planning on it.
Yeah.
It was cold.
Yeah.
So
it was cold. But for the record, when we all left the cigar bar without you, right where you got into that Uber was a big thing of puke.
Yeah, that was not me.
All right.
And I didn't see it, to be honest with you, but it wasn't. That part was not true.
You probably stepped in it and didn't even know it.
Yeah. I suppose that's possible.
Yep. Wild and Lucky jokes when do the buyouts end. God, I can't wait. How nice would that be?
Well, it will be nice.
Yeah.
It's not a hypothetical. It will be nice.
Yeah. Isles 1380 goes, would the Wild be interested in any of the UFAs? You know, guys like Pacioretty are out there, Tyler Johnson, Cal Clutterbuck, blah, 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 that are still out there, or will rookies fill the gap? I mean, right now, they can't even afford if all thing is equal going into training camp, and let's just say John Merrill makes the team and isn't put on waivers, that they save
and
like $400. Right. And if they keep three goalies, they can't even afford another $775,000 for 2 or 3 days into the season, if I did my bad math correctly. So if they keep three goalies, they can't even afford, I think, Riley Heidt. So I can't imagine, even though, like, you know, they went after Line A and they went after him hard, and they were willing to take him, you know, sometimes you might look at him and be like, well, maybe Pacioretty at $1 million would be good. They can't even afford that right now. So
yeah, but that changes quickly.
Yeah, like they can obviously.
There's ways to make it work. If you felt like you were really truly a forward short.
Yeah.
But I just think.
I wouldn't take a flyer on Pacioretty is like the only one. Although I like Tyler Johnson, he doesn't make you.
No, and I like Pacioretty a lot.
Bigger, I mean.
And he's...
But he's not the same. I mean, this guy's had two Achilles issues.
Right. So he's not the same. But if you...
He's a USA Hockey guy.
Yeah, I really like him a lot. But he's not a guy I would rather... Those are minutes I'd rather see given to a guy who's going to be a part of your organization moving forward.
Even a Height, if they could figure it out. The Halabai, I was talking to one of the Slovak players in Prague, and I totally butchered. I think it was Slavkovsky. I totally butchered how to pronounce Halabai. I'm like, Halavich? And he's like, who? And then he's like, Halavai. So now I think I'm getting it right. This person goes, well, where did the Wild see Halavai in the next few years? All I know is that they were extremely excited to sign him as a free agent. And he is, especially if Allstedt's come up here, Halavai is going to be the number one probably down in Iowa.
Yeah, and we'll have to, I get asked a lot about the goaltending situation, and we have to see how this plays out.
Yeah.
We're both guessing that there will be some times where there will be three goalies up here. There will be some times where Volsted's back in Iowa just based on schedule and who's going to play when and where, who's playing well. I mean, if Volsted comes up here and gets a couple opportunities early and plays great, that's going to change their plans without a doubt. Now, if he comes up here and let's say Gus starts out like he finished a couple of years ago. And you say, all right, well, we can ride Gus for a while. Let's make sure Volsted's getting adequate playing time. And so every once in a while it's in the NHL, but if he can play a couple games in a week in the American League, I think that'll happen. So,
by the way, I think that we were 100% right on what we thought would. Now, I'm not saying that Flower doesn't go on the road to Winnipeg and St. Louis, but we were 100% right, at least on the alignment to start, because somebody said to Billy at the State Fair the other day when he got off the air, like, I'm the biggest Marc-Andre Fleury fan ever. Can you tell me when he's going to start his first game? And then he like winked at her and goes, I'd come to the Seattle game. So we were right at a minimum that Gus starts opening night, Fleury game 2.
Assuming,
but then it's to your theory on if they kept 3 goalies, why even take Fleury to Winnipeg and St. Louis if you're going to start Gus the next game, and then you're probably starting Volstad game 4 in St. Louis.
I'm thinking sometimes where you've got a second of back-to-backs at home, you let one guy be there at home and not be he doesn't have to be the starter or the backup the night before in another city. It's like baseball team sending the starting pitcher to the next city. Didn't
the Dallas game that Volstad started, if I remember correctly, he met the team in Dallas, or am I totally wrong on that? I can't remember. I thought he was there before the team got there because he was coming up from Iowa.
He might have.
Yeah. And they didn't bring who backed up that true, whether it was Gus or Flower.
I don't remember because we didn't do that game. That was a national game.
Somebody was hurt. That's the only reason why Volstad was even going, if I remember. Chris asks, I noticed that Jonas Brodin's trade protection is up after the season. Do you think there's any chance the Wild decide to move on from him? I do think that in the next couple of years, they'll look at anything and everything, even with Spurgeon and Brodin. Don't you?
I think the way that Billy has approached this is he's willing to listen to just about anything for anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be an actively trying to trade Jonas Brodin, but there's almost nobody about whom somebody could call where Billy would laugh him off the phone. Maybe Kirill Kaprizov. And aside from that, I don't know that there's a guy in his roster that if somebody says, hey, I'd like to talk to you about this guy, that Billy isn't going to say, what do you have in mind? Let's at least hear him out.
Yeah. Somebody else has Yurov always been viewed as a center prospect? No, but definitely they do now. Any other things you want to talk about?
No, other than we had, I think last week when we did the show, we were about to head to a cabin and grill up some great feller's steaks. We did that. That was great. Had a chance to spend some time with great friends over in Wisconsin at a cabin and get away and escape last weekend.
By the way, the Lindgrens came to my State Fair show the other day, and they were very, very happy about everything that you said on the last podcast. And I'm like, there's no doubt you didn't charge Anthony for this. That had to be Anthony's way of saying, thank you for not charging me a cent for my taxes.
That's false. We hired him as our accountant. I'd recommend him. You should. I told him that. I said the first thing I said is Russo should get a new accountant.
Yeah,
so you should.
I do just in case he's listening. I do like my accountant. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that he's saving me a lot of money, but I do like him.
No, but those guys were great. But we reverse seared these New York strips, and boy, did they turn out terrific.
Yeah.
So that was
do you know
great.
I Googled what a reverse sear even meant the other day?
Why?
I don't know. I saw somebody talking about it on Twitter, and I just didn't. I'm like, I don't even know how you do it, let alone what it looks like.
That's why I was wondering why you'd even bother.
Yeah, I know.
It's not like you're on the verge of cooking up a steak at your house some night.
All right, last question. Andreas Anderson goes, just read the automatic transcription from Podcaster of Russo's pod with Gorg. Which of the 6 different spelling mistakes would Anthony prefer if he had to change his name? LaPanta, spelled Lepante. LaPanton, Lepanton. LaPanta, 2 words, but Penta. LaPanti, with an I at the end. La Penta, Penta, or Lepanto.
That's how the auto transcription did it. Well, I'll tell you that the one that I get the most is LaPlante or LaPlanta, where they just throw an extra L in there. But when we moved offices, which was then Fox Sports North, and we were in Northeast Minneapolis, we moved across the river to where we sit now in LaSalle Plaza, and they printed for the first time. I had a nameplate on my cubicle. And on there, they put it Anthony LaPanta. So that was a new one I hadn't heard before. But I guess the one we hear the most is either LaPlante or LaPlanta. If it was, I hate the LE. That bothers me. So I don't know which one would be the worst, but I'll go with LaPanta. It's got a little pizzazz.
Yeah. Well, thanks to our incredible sponsors, Anthony. We'll be talking next week again. September 19th is our next live show. September 19th is our next live show, 7 p.m. at Tuttles. Thanks to Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water systems. Thanks to Bosch Law Firm. Thanks to Feller's Ranch. Thanks to Twill and the Edina Galleria. And thanks to Royal Credit Union. Talk to you next week, everybody.